Hello and welcome to NewsClick. The situation in Yemen is being viewed with some alarm, especially by Western media, given the cocktail of developments in recent times. An armed rebellion in the border regions, an unstable, if not weak, government, increased activities by extremist groups calling themselves Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, Saudi military intervention in the border, and now the looming threat of US armed intervention in the country. To discuss the situation in Yemen, we have with us today Professor Aijaz Ahmad, well-known commentator on international affairs and a familiar face to NewsClick viewers. Welcome to NewsClick, Aijaz. So Aijaz, is Yemen teetering on the brink of becoming another failed state? And is the conditions on the border regions similar to that in the Afghan-Pakistan region now an additional reason for increased activities by Al-Qaeda on the one hand and an excuse for US intervention on the other?
I'm alarmed by the way the Yemen is being projected in the media. You see, no one seems to remember that Yemen had a full-fledged Republican revolution in 1962. Yemen in the north. In the south, Yemen still has the distinction of being the only Arab country which had a Marxist-Leninist government for some 15 years or so. It is always being portrayed as some tribal Wild West of some sort and so on and so forth. Yemen had 1 million workers in Saudi Arabia who were thrown out of Saudi Arabia. Yemen has tens of thousands of workers living in the United States and so on. So one thing that we have to understand is that this projection of Yemen as some crazy place, that has to, in fact, be jettisoned first of all. Secondly, according to the estimates of the American intelligence community, there are 200 or so Al-Qaeda members in Yemen. You know, after they have said, the Saudi branches and the Yemen branch have sort of congregated, it is now emerging as the biggest, this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, they give you an estimate of about 200. Some people say it's about 95 or so. Some people say that there aren't more than 50 or 60 really armed militants of Al-Qaeda. Now, these people have carried out a couple of times some spectacular actions which any small, well-armed group can do from time to time. That is being projected now by the American media and the American establishment as the reason for all of this. Much more important in this is, in fact, a situation in which there has been a personal dictatorship in Yemen, very corrupt, very cynical for the last 30 years, Mr. Saleh's dictatorship. The Zaydis, the Shia, who are being projected as some sort of proxies for Iran, are the people who provided the amirs to Yemen for 1,000 years. Right. The estimates for the Shia population always underestimate the numbers. They're probably about 45% of the population and an absolute majority in the north. Yeah. And they were the privileged strata for 1,000 years. What they're fighting for is actually to occupy that position, certainly in the north, if not the whole of Yemen, to recapture that position. Sure. Now, Saleh's cynicism and his government's cynicism portrays them as some agents of Iran or something like that. Likewise, in the south, after the unification of 1990, the people who came over from the south and joined the larger confederation feel completely disinherited from the new establishment because of the dictatorship.
One would think that the US has got its hands full in Iraq and on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. In the midst of all this, do you think the US still is inclined to intervene in Yemen at least to prevent the Al-Qaeda from establishing a base in North Africa?
Absolutely. You see, Yemen is a completely strategic spot.
Right.
If you establish your position in the Yemen, then, on the Red Sea on the one hand, the Arabian Sea on the other, at Bab el-Mandeb and so on, it's a very strategic place. And it's right next to Saudi Arabia. It's not a small country. The population of Yemen is equal to the population of Saudi Arabia. Territorially, it's small, it's poor and all that. But it's a strategic country. I think it is very much tied up with occupying a position in Yemen, in Somalia, in Kenya, to control the entire western coast of the Indian Ocean, to further control oil routes. There is also a speculation, perhaps more than speculation, estimates, that a northern part of Yemen probably has a lot more oil underground. So there is that sort of positioning of that. The oil for China goes not only from the Gulf, but about 6% of it comes from the Sudan and so on. So it's a positioning. It's a position of that kind. Right. So you have again a repeat. In Afghanistan, their intelligence agencies are saying that there are no more than about 100 Al-Qaeda members. In the name of Al-Qaeda, Afghanistan, Pakistan are being exploded.
A pattern seems to be taking shape in regions where the US is intervening in its so-called war on terror. In Pakistan, the government has almost developed into a fine art a strategy of battling militants, but not accomplishing the task, keeping the Americans interested and attracting more and more US financial and military aid. The Afghan leadership in Hamid Karzai now seems to be following the same pattern. Is Abdullah Saleh in Yemen also going to follow a similar course?
You see, let me first start with a footnote, actually. They played up this, underwear bomber case in the United States itself so much to create war hysteria that a poll shows that 71% of the Americans now believe that the United States should send troops to the Yemen. Right. Because of that fellow who's a Nigerian. So, there's that. Now, look, the Arab people have 3 or 4 grievances against the United States. One, the question of Palestine. Second, the question of the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan. Third, very importantly, that the United States constantly props up the most rabid dictators and monarchs. And that is part of what is going on in Yemen. And the Americans continue to do that. So, yes, you could call it a strategy, but it's a defunct strategy which has failed and failed and failed over and over again. And yet all of these people are complicit in it. Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Lieberman, this, that, and the other, the whole lot. And it's going to meet the same fate. And they are milking the United States. 54% of the weapons of Yemen come from Russia.
Sure.
Some 70 or 75% of it comes from Russia, Ukraine, China, Italy, and so on. So there is all of that. And after this, after the Americans have done all this, the foreign minister, the deputy prime minister, the minister of the interior of Yemen stand up and say that we will not allow foreign intervention in this country. If there is a foreign intervention in this country, it will unite all Yemenis together and so on and so forth. So they are absolutely playing the Pakistan game.
It's the same old game?
It's the Pakistan game.
That's right.
So again, America is doing something which is far beyond its capacity, which makes no sense in any regional terms. And yet there's a kind of a desperation that the only way you can keep up the imperium is by controlling all of these strategic positions.
Thank you, Aijaz.